Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, team, to another episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series. Ashlie and I are sitting down with two of the longest-standing members of our TI community, Dr. Mike Haarer and Madeline Spring. Both Mike and Madeline have extensive experience using the Townsend Model in their personal and professional lives.
That they do, Gilbert. As licensed clinicians with years of leadership experience, Mike and Madeline have been fixtures as adjuncts and facilitators in our Townsend Institute since its inception. Today, they provide great tips about how their coaching, leadership, and counseling journeys have been impacted by the Townsend Model. We also get a closer glimpse into their relationship as colleagues and friends. So, let's get started. Welcome back, tipsters, to the Townsend Institute podcast series. Gilbert and I have a full room here today. We are joined by Mike Haarer and Madeline Spring. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad you're here. I like tipsters. I don't know. I mean,
I kind of just came up with that. Is it a good one?
That is awesome. Can we get some like mugs or t-shirts or something going on with tipsters in it?
Tipsters.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We may have to edit that part out. But no, in all seriousness, we're on Concordia Irvine's campus. We are here as part of our 4-day on-campus residency where Mike and Madeline are actually helping to facilitate process groups and different breakout session and workshops for nearly 200 students, earning their master's and certificate degrees here with the Townsend Institute. We were able to pull them away from a little bit of their hard work to just kind of touch base and hear a little bit more. Both of them have been really friends of Dr. Townsend and students and practitioners of the Townsend Model for a number of years now. So we're going to delve into that. I'd like to open it up by talking about your introduction to the Townsend Model and maybe Dr. John himself and what those early experiences were like and how it's kind of paved the way to where you are now. So Madeline, can we start with you?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so I was kind of introduced to the Townsend Model when I was in graduate school. And so I was knee deep in diapers. I think I had 2 babies at the time, maybe 3.
Somewhere around there. You lose count.
Like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm in grad school and learning all about these different modalities. And actually at the same time, my husband and I had a 17-year-old foster son who we had taken in. I worked at a residential treatment facility. This kid was like a model kid at the program and just needed somewhere to go for the last 2 years for a lot of reasons. He couldn't go home. And so he needed, just help getting through to graduation. And so my husband and I knew I was quitting. Actually, I was quitting my job at a residential treatment facility at the time, and I was pregnant with a child. And so we were getting ready to have babies and we took this kid in. We became foster parents and just to kind of see him through. And this kid who was this model citizen at this kind of structured program came to our home and just floundered, like in and out of hospitalization, self-harming, suicidal ideation, expulsion from school. And, what we found is that he actually had borderline personality disorder. Oh, wow. And so at a residential treatment facility, which was very kind of top-down approach, it was more like cognitive behavioral work and really rigidly structured. He did great.
Yeah.
But all that structure was external. There was no internal structure built in.
Interesting.
And so as I'm working with him, and we're obviously at our wits' end, babies ourselves, really trying to help this kid through high school, I am learning about then this psychodynamic model of therapy. And so the light bulb just went on for me and I realized this is what I've been looking for. Like there has to be a way to do deeper, lasting healing in clients. And this is it. I hadn't seen anything else that touched that. So I joined, I think this was before Townsend Leadership Program, the TLPs existed, but I joined a group that modeled that, what became that model. And it just transformed me inside and out. Like I was not the same person as a result of joining that group.
Wow.
So I could go into so many of the different kind of corrective experiences I had in that. But I was like, this is it. And so I've kind of become a Townsend junkie since then.
Yeah.
It's been many years in this model that I started leading those groups and being a part of that. And that's kind of how I fell into coaching actually after I got my master's in counseling, because I was doing these groups that had just transformed the way that I love and lead. And wanted to offer it to other people.
That's awesome. A Townsend junkie or groupie.
Total Townsend.
Yeah, either
groupie,
one.
Group junkie, Townsend, all of the, yes.
Tipster.
For sure.
A tipster.
Major tipster.
I love it.
That's awesome. Now, what about you, Mike? Talk about your introduction and use of the model over the years.
Yeah, so working at that same residential treatment center that Madeline was talking about, we worked together there for a few years before getting involved with the Townsend program. And so we were working with the board and leadership team at that organization to build a new program specifically for families from all around the country that were struggling with major mental health problems with their teens that weren't coming through the court system and court ordered like those we'd been working with for years prior to that. And so as we started to set out and say, how do we build a program for these average families dealing with what at that time was major mental health crisis due to, when you think about 2011, 12 is when this was happening, and you were seeing all sorts of self-harm, suicidal thinking, specifically with teen girls as the smartphone, social media, all those things.
Advent of social media. Really, yeah.
So did you have people, you were pulling all around from all over the country, right?
Yes. And so we were working with families from all over the country, and they'd been in and out of short-term inpatient residential treatment, and they're just still locked in the cycle of in and out of inpatient, self-harm, suicidal thinking. And so looking for a model to build a program for that family that's not just kind of band-aiding, not just skills, not just here's a quick fix, but saying we've got really clinically complex problems here.
Right.
What do we do to wrap them up in a way that both this family coming from all over are going to resonate, understand, feel aligned with, and that it's got the clinical depth to really get to the root of the problem.
Right. Oh, that makes so much sense.
I got to benefit from being part of that from, I think, basically the beginning. I was in grad school getting my master's, and Mike was like, hey, where are you at in your program? Are you ready to see clients? And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll come back. So he was starting this program. So I got to benefit from not only that expertise of learning the model alongside of him while I was in graduate school, but also he infused it into the organization itself.
Yeah.
So we didn't just offer this clinically to the students and their families, but Mike really built in this organization the model.
That's
all lived
awesome.
the model, still live the model.
Yeah.
The organization doesn't even exist anymore. And yet those relationships continue to be some of the deepest and most meaningful relationships in my life, because they're people who speak the same language and live this out truly in their own lives.
Well, let's talk a little bit more then about what that looks like. And obviously, I know that you're dealing with these families and these individuals for weeks, months, perhaps even longer, right? And so, but give us a little bit of an example. Maybe Madeline, will start with you from the clinician side, like a family comes in, right? Or someone's checking into the residential treatment facility. What would that kind of look like as you start to teach them or get them to adopt that language of the Townsend growth model from really that counseling side? And then Mike, we'll go back to you and talk more about that organizational side.
Yeah. So from the counseling side, and I actually also was the admissions director for many years in outreach. And so even really it starts with the admissions director knowing how to attune to the parent on the phone who's calling and saying they're at their wit's end and they don't know what to do.
Oh yeah. This isn't just like making a reservation at a restaurant or a hotel. Like you're dealing with people.
No, you're not calling the Olive Garden.
No,
That's
tough.
And all of the shame that comes with, I can't handle my kid. And what especially an adopted kid, right? Like even more so how that trauma that they anticipate is going to be reopening for them to send them away. I mean, there's so much complexity in that. And so really even the admissions counselor who's answering the initial phone call, creating a container of safety is so huge, right? So from that very moment on, and then we got to do the girls, obviously it was residential treatment. So they got daily group work and individual therapy and all those kinds of things. But we also worked with the families. And so therapists were working with families every other week or so, really bringing them into the model, helping them understand attachment, boundaries, all those kinds of things.
I was going to say, so you're using that language,
Yes.
you're teaching them the character capacities, which we of course teach all of our students at a graduate level. But what's so neat about the model is it can be taught at, say, a 16-year-old girl level, right?
And how grateful they are when their parents learn boundaries, when their parents do their work in attachment, when their parents do, right? And so incredibly helpful to have that language, that safety, that growth. But then we also, what I loved that Mike did in building that is have quarterly parent weekends. So the parents are coming in kind of like what we just put all these people through in residency.
Yeah, our own
they're
students.
coming in and they're learning through these trainings and they're participating in process groups and family therapy and they're doing these experiential things. So every quarter the parents are brought in and doing this work right alongside the kids. And often that's when they really got it. I think Mike would say too, like that first weekend that they were there, they're like, oh, this is what it is. And facing their own stuff because this kid didn't learn these maladaptive behaviors on their own. Right.
Yeah.
The system is what built these.
How long were kids typically at the comes from?
Often it was up to a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a long time to work with them and really get into that family system and get to the root of things.
Well, like you said, it's not putting a Band-Aid on it. It's really, taking the time. So that's really interesting to know. So Mike, let's turn it back over to you. You talk about using the Townsend growth model as an opportunity to really, heal and used as a tool, therapeutic approach with these young girls. But talk about it from the organizational standpoint, because it's an organization with doors open. You got to have money coming in. It's got to be managed. You got to have facilities. You got to have leadership. I mean, it's just like any business in terms of that. So how did the model impact that?
Yeah, well, one of the things was just organizationally, how you set things up with your team and creating team culture. And so part of what we did, and it's something you hear specifically, Madeline and I are both trained counselors, but also had different roles within the organization. But one of the things we say as counselors is you can take people as far as what you're willing to go yourself.
Yes.
In terms of the healing and growth process. And so one of the things that was important to us culturally in the organization was that we have a team of people helping others who have also gone to those depths themselves. And so it was important for us to prioritize that as an organization where we're providing a place, a system, and we're modeling where people are involved in their own growth process. And so we would create trainings. We would actually do semi-process groups with staff where they were able to identify, even as a team, what's coming up as we're working together or as I'm working with these clients, what's that bringing up in me and how am I managing that? And so, and not only, the process that we facilitated ourselves, but through that modeling, a high percentage of our staff were doing their own work, seeing their own therapist and that type of thing. So part of it is just creating a culture that values and prioritizes those aspects.
I love that. And it makes it such a fit here, right? Because we do that at the Townsend Institute also. We're very blessed that, a few years ago, our administrative team, in addition, in helps with Dr. Townsend, helped many of us go through the Townsend Leadership Program or whatever that was for us too, to make sure that we were really getting that firsthand experience of then what we're going on to teach and model for our students.
Can you imagine how that would look in organizations to actually have a process group? Like we got to experience at Campus Rose, which was extremely helpful because they're in the trenches with these girls and the transference and countertransference, all those kinds of things. But even take out of it the mental health organization, any organization, can you imagine how healthy it could be if you set aside 1 or 2 hours a month to actually do process?
Right.
Like to be in the here and now and talk about, hey, this came up for me. I was feeling inferior when at that meeting you said X, Y, Z, and you could actually process that out. I'm like, dream of a world in which that's actually included in organizational health.
Well, and that takes vulnerability, right? And trust, right? As we heard Dr. Cloud talk about this morning at the residency, the trust. If you didn't have that, the psychological safety, that could never happen. But you're right. If that existed,
you'd literally create the psychological safety in that process.
Wow.
Both of you, of course, with having, careers in these different areas, also have families of yourselves. You talked about it, Madeline. Your kids are luckily out of diapers now, right? You're not changing 3 sets of diapers anymore. And Mike, you yourself have kids and you're on quite the expedition you could probably talk about here.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about how you and your spouses use the Townsend growth model without maybe calling it what it is to kind of impact and help lead your own families.
Yes.
Well, I think Emily and I, my wife and I, were just reflecting last night on how thankful we are that basically the whole span of time that we've been parenting, we've been just involved in this whole Townsend world and growing ourselves. And so one of the ways that's coming out for us is just that blend of warmth and attunement with safety, structure, and boundaries coming together in everything we do, integrating that. And so really leaning into offering the attunement and containment for our kids when there are things where, when your child is sad, complaining, hurt, all those things, and you have a lot of things you're trying to do, your innate response may be, we just got to move on and just kind of not deal with it, but really to have that sense of creating space for the emotion and leaning in and allowing that. But then also, with gentle parenting and kind of the tendency, you can go overboard with that and allow kids to stay there.
Right.
But the other side of it is to also offer the structure and the safety and the boundaries. And so, for all of these years to be able to have that type of balanced approach has been so incredible for us.
Yeah, I've noticed that a little bit with the whole gentle parenting thing, where it's like the kids are running the show now, right? Yeah. And that seems to run into a problem when they go to school or try and do activities and things like that.
All grace, no truth is not a good.
Yeah. Those kids being gentle parented might have a rude awakening if it goes too far, right? When they hit the so-called real world. So what about you, Madeline? How do you and your husband maybe integrate that model with your own kids?
Yeah, I even struggle with the word integrate. It doesn't even feel like we're integrating it so much as it has just so become us. Yes. Like I said, I couldn't help but be changed by the model, and therefore, inadvertently, Aaron really didn't have a choice but to be changed by the model.
Yeah. It's part of the marriage vows.
Changes, the other person kind of has to figure things out. I think back to that first year of the training group that I was a part of, and man, things were hard in our marriage, and we talk about this, and I really felt like in a lot of ways he was not showing up, was not enough. I was not getting what I needed. Mm-hmm. And then I learned that your spouse is responsible for about 40% of your needs. Your relational needs should be met 40% of them by your spouse. I'm pretty sure that's the number that Dr. Townsend says. And so when I learned that, I'm like, man, Aaron is killing it.
Yeah.
He's knocking it out of the park. He's doing way more than 40%. So when he was only doing 80%, it was like, come on, oh my gosh, right? Yeah. And then I'm like, wow, he's actually doing probably double what he should be doing. Yeah, and that it really flipped for me, that boundary. I think probably read Boundaries in Marriage at that time. And it really changed things. I realized that I needed to get resourced outside of my marriage in healthy ways, because it was too much to expect him to meet all of my needs, which really freed me up to like him a lot more.
Yeah, I bet.
Right. And so, and even from that, my, that first year too, another huge piece for me. And this is what's so nuanced about the model is you can't really describe what it's going to do for somebody, because it's going to hit you differently where you're developmentally and what you're going through. But I remember a process group where I had lost my temper on my kid, my sweet little child at home. That was, I was frustrated. I was overstimulated. I was, whatever, and lost my temper on him and felt just so much shame. You would not believe the amount of shame I felt in this group. And I felt safe enough that I let it come out, and I shared it with this group it was all women. They were all Christian women from my church that I kind of probably idealized in some way, right? They would never lose their temper like this on a kid. Right. And when I shared it, I expected, I'm sure my head was down, my eyes were closed, trying to cover and be protected in some way. But what I experienced was that everybody drew close, that they told me stories of when they lost their temper. They normalized, not saying that that's fine, keep doing it, right? But their utter acceptance of me and drawing toward me shifted that shame spiral. Because, what would happen before is I'd lose my temper, and then guess what? 20 minutes later, I'm losing it again. Because it's shame. I'm bad, right? And it's just a spiral downward. And what that did was, the shame spiral turns inward. Mm-hmm. When that happened, I learned that I could actually go outward and get what I needed, get acceptance, get containment. I learned to run toward other people and toward God, as opposed to feeling isolated and alone in that space, which just perpetuated the issue. Right. And so I mean, that profoundly transformed the way that I showed up. Obviously, as a result of that, I lose my temper way less frequently, right? It's so much. I mean, I'm getting resourced. I'm getting what I need from people, and it doesn't lead down that shame spiral. So, I mean, and everything since then, like each kid, they're working through these developmental stages of attaching, separating, integrating, and moving into adulthood. And when I think about my kids, even right now, at each of the different stages that they're at, there's one kid that, like, I'm almost like encouraging her to break the rules a little bit, like push the envelope. Like, what if you said a curse word? Yeah. Because she's got this harsh, rigid judge and she's so kind of black and white. And then I've got another kid who I'm like, okay, tone it down. Yeah. you don't need to say those words.
Fall back in line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like for her, it's more that, like, let's invite that tough exterior to soften. Let's see that vulnerable part. Could you share that with me and feel safe? And so it's really allowed me to parent in such a healthier way because I'm aware of them and their needs and where they're at, and able to give that grace or truth, in that order and in that in ample space.
Well, and you talked a little bit about how it's impacted your own parenting, but I like that term, shame spiral. Yeah. I mean, that not that you want to say you're throwing a shame spiral out today,
it's so
but
real, though.
Yeah. But how do you utilize this now? It sounds like you're doing some parent coaching. What does that look like in your world?
Yeah. And part of what I just wanted to say around what Madeline was just saying, in parenting, the biggest thing that we can do is do our own work to be healthy.
Oh, yeah.
So part of it is, even when I'm working with parents, there's an element of, practical, like what are we doing with your kids and how you're approaching them. But the biggest piece is, how are you getting healthy? Like, how are you creating for yourself the resources in relationships and connections?
So I think that's probably really interesting. You're dealing with kids that are, taking up a lot of time and a lot of resources, and the parents are just focused 100% of their time on that kid. Right. And they're not thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so to begin to shift that focus and say, what would it be like for me to be healthy, for me to feel like I am not all consumed by my child and their behavior? In fact, sometimes it really is saying, okay, what is it that gives you life where you can empower your child to solve some of their own problems while you're getting your needs met? And ultimately, that is good for you and the child.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, honestly, what comes to mind is the airplane metaphor.
Yeah.
You put on your own mask first before your children, right? You've got to keep yourself healthy and some of that. And that kind of just goes back, probably stemming from your history in the helping professions, is you've got to make sure that you're creating space for that self-care and not getting kind of overburdened or, by the feelings and others. And in parenting is hard because even more so, you don't turn it off ever. Right. You're not clocking out.
I tell my kids some night.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. When I tuck them in, I say, okay, I'm clocking out. I'll see you in the morning.
How's that work?
I tell them, I don't need to be bothered. You figure it out. If you're bleeding out on the carpet, come get me.
And
but
that's
other than
the night Gilbert slept in the tent.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's
great.
how that worked out.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
The other piece that I see come up a lot for parents is that you see this dynamic of, on the one side, you have the super graceful parent that's kind of leaning in, supportive, and you have the super truth, boundaried, structure parent that can lean toward critical and harsh. And so really kind of helping parents work together and not
no more
say
good cop, bad cop.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes we, in whichever role we fall, we step in almost to protect from the other half. And so instead it's saying, no, I value what you bring as the caring, gentle, or I value what you bring as the strong, structured. How do we work together and lean into each other's strengths and abilities there?
And part of that probably is going back to doing your own work so you can figure out who you are maybe in that thing. As my next question was going to be, you've been talking a lot about this parenting thing, and maybe I'm just trying to learn and get advice while I'm here. And I have your attention notes, here. But I'm just wondering, for those listeners out there that this sounds great. I've learned the model. I know the model. I'm reading the model. Or after this episode, maybe you're gonna, search the model.
That's right.
We've got resources for you. Where do you start? right? You're thinking about this like, okay, well, I don't have a whole month to put into this. I'm not in a residential treatment facility for up to a year. Yeah. Like, what are some very practical steps that perhaps parents or caregivers can take today and tomorrow to kind of start this work in themselves and their families?
Yeah. I mean, I would say start, like Mike said, with yourself. So do you have a coach or a therapist who's trained in this model that knows it well, that is going to help you to grow? I think, at the bare minimum, that's required of all of us. Yeah. I think we do. We have that responsibility really as leaders. And, Mike and I were talking about how parents are leaders. Everyone, you are leading your family, and it's really, you're charged with this responsibility to take care of you. But then there are, there's some resources in terms of books, of course. Dr. Townsend wrote the book, Boundaries with Teens. And so that can be a helpful resource if you're working with teens. There's also a book that it's called Feeding the Mouth That Bites You. Not my favorite title for this book, but I really found it to be very helpful as a parent because it really talks about our job being to work ourselves out of a job. Our job is not to protect our child or to keep them safe or to keep them on this path that we have for them, but to really instill them with the agency and the initiative and the power to take on. So it's really boundaries, right? And for parents, it's grief. Yeah. It's the grief that we can't control the outcome, that we have to allow them to kind of own their own lives in that way. But then the other thing is, find a group. If there's a process group that you can join virtually or in person, even ideally, that is led by somebody in this model that gets this. So much of the work that Mike and I both work with leaders now and do executive coaching and leadership training. We're both Townsend Leadership Program directors, TLP directors. And I can't tell you how many times these high-level executives are coming into process group in that space and talking about parenting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because it comes up, and it's all welcome because you cannot separate the leader at work from the leader at home. We're one person. And so the same things that are showing up at work are showing up at home.
Right.
Yes.
Things that are happening at home are showing up in work. So if you learn to set boundaries with your emerging adult child and hold those, that's also going to impact your work in your organization because you're probably struggling to set those boundaries there too, right? So do that work. Find somebody that you feel safe with that can lead you in this process.
That's awesome. That is so great. You have anything to add to the mic?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much there around just starting with who's my community, who's going to support me through this process of parenting and learning and growth. And so one of the first steps, hopefully that's step one, you've got the community, you've got the resource coach, those types of things. The next thing I would say that can be really helpful is that gaining self-awareness and insight around what is coming out in my parenting. If I'm looking inside and saying, and taking feedback from spouse and others around me about how I'm showing up in the family.
Yeah.
And so if I'm showing up as more that gracious, enabling, I'm letting things slide, or if I'm showing up more as harsh and critical, what's the root of that? Look at my own family of origin issues and be able to take feedback around that as we look to each other and heal and grow. Be soft, be open to feedback, be warm, be ready.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And we have a ton of resources, like you mentioned. I mean, we've got books you can read, right? Boundary series,
Join
People
Townsend
Fuel.
Institute.
Join the
Townsend Institute. We've got graduate degrees and certificates for you. And what's awesome about the Institute, I mean, we are graduating hundreds of students in our various fields, right? Counseling, leadership, and executive coaching that are going out into the world and helping bring this model into their various vocations. So look around in your communities. This model is in churches and in therapeutic offices with executive coaches. Speaking of those students, again, another hat you wear with us all is that you both have been adjunct faculty members and currently are in our program. So can you talk a little bit about that kind of student perspective and what you see from our students and those maybe that are listening who might be considering joining the Townsend Institute, what they can expect to get in one of our classes?
Oh my goodness. I just had somebody text me this morning. I'm out here in California for this conference, and I had somebody text me this morning from my hometown saying, what do you know about the organizational leadership program at Townsend Institute? And I'm like, I'm hanging out with two of my besties that are professors in it. Let me tell you all about it.
Well, this interview just got even better.
So, really, my response very genuinely was, I cannot recommend it enough. And when she was talking about certificate versus master's and which program, I'm like, you literally can't go wrong. Let's talk about what you want to get out of it. But I told her, any program that you choose in the Institute is going to dramatically change your life for the better. It will impact everything that you do from now on forward.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about you, Mike? What have you seen?
I would say the same thing. I mean, people come here because they want to help others and they want to, make a career change and all these things. But what they may not expect is the wild transformational growth experience that they're going to have themselves.
Yes.
And so, I would say if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about it, if you're going through it, lean into that process of your own growth. Be the person, become the person that you need to be in order to make the impact that you want to have.
Yeah. It sounds so funny saying this now because I'm on my own business and all those kinds of things. But when I first started my master's program, I was like, why am I doing this? I kind of just want to be a stay-at-home mom. And the more, I think, second class in, I was like, man, this is going to make me such a better mom. No matter what you are doing this work on yourself. We used to joke that it was a really expensive therapist. that I was going to see every Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because you have to do your own work really to be effective in this way.
We've talked a lot today. How can we get more information about what you all are up to? Right? Where do we find it? I'm sure it's on the World Wide Web somewhere. What's a way that we can find you all?
Townsend Leadership Program.
Yes.
You could look at TLP online. My company is called Undaunted Leadership Coaching and Wholeness.
I think that's a fun name.
Thank
Undaunted.
you.
How did you come up with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we need the
Undaunted,
background.
Doesn't it sound so masculine and let's take the hill and we can do
I hope you have a sticker on your car that says this.
So the bait and switch in that, or maybe the hidden meaning in that, is really what Undaunted is showing up with courage. And when you show up in these process groups and you show up for coaching, you're really going to be challenged very quickly to call on that courage, right? We've all been through TLP, we've all been through this stuff. And so Undaunted is really we talk about Townsend Institute, that character is having the set of capacities needed to meet the demands of reality. That to me is Undaunted. You're showing up, you're being vulnerable, you're allowing yourself to be seen and to look at these parts of yourself that are not ideal, that have wounding, where there's pain, and you're stepping into that anyway in order to heal and grow. And so that's where Undaunted comes from. So
that's a great name.
Hopefully it's, the idea was it's attractive to both, masculine and feminine, but also it actually gets so much deeper. So Undaunted Leadership Coaching and Wholeness is my business, and Mike and I are together leading TLP groups. So I've been a TLP director for a number of years, and now Mike and I are getting to co-lead together, which makes me so happy.
That's so cool. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we lead a TLP together, and basically Madeline and I have gotten to co-lead, co-facilitate, train lots of things over the years.
2008, Mike hired me to work at a residential treatment facility. 2008. So my entire professional career really has been so connected.
So if we have any problems with Madeline, then we have to talk to Mike about the training that she has received from you.
I've seen it all.
Of this relationship.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. So basically now for us, we're just getting to take all of that work that we've done together and work together in the format of the TLP groups, which is a year-long process that people can enter into. And they're with us one day a month. But in between, we also get to do the individual coaching with them. So Madeline and I love to be able to work together.
Do you have a cool name too?
I actually have a really creative and clever name for my business as well.
Okay, can't wait to hear it.
It's called Mike Haarer Coaching. So it took me a lot to come up with,
but you're a doctor. You have your doctorate. Yes. Dr. Mike.
Right. Yeah. So Mike Haarer Coaching, so people can find me on there. And one of the things that I would say too is in terms of the lowest entry for people that just are hey, I hear this parenting stuff and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to even begin. I offer an online parenting class that people can just sign up, go through videos, kind of learn, hear about it. And then if they want to engage further from there, they can. But that's
who's the ideal audience for that? First-time parents, new parents, at any ages?
Yeah. What's amazing about this model, in my opinion, is it's applicable and scalable to any kind of age or stage that you're in.
Awesome.
Now, ideally, if you're just starting out as a new parent, get in now. Because if you can learn, and that's how I felt. I had the opportunity. Emily and I had just had our first baby when I jumped into the counselor training program with Dr. Townsend. And wow, I mean, that was an amazing time to get to start and do that. And so I encourage people. The problem is a lot of people, it's kind of like that idea of if I'm not feeling a huge problem right now. If you haven't really had a huge struggle in parenting yet, you may not be looking. But my encouragement is get help now. Like start looking, start learning.
Because the problems will come. Teenagers are good at providing problems and drama. So they can create that. So, well, we end all episodes here with a tip. So is there a takeaway tip that you want us to, our listeners, to walk away with today?
Mine would be, if you are not engaging in a coaching or counseling relationship, do it. Find a good counselor, find a good coach. If you already have one, then my tip is to find a group. Take it to the next level.
Yes.
Yeah. And my tip, I would say something I already kind of said, but the idea around, you may be looking for, how do I help people? What skills do I need to gain to be able to do what I want to do? And I would say lean into that process of focusing on, who do I need to be in order to do what I want to do? And just that process of growth, focusing on who you want to be to help those around you.
To help you do what you want to do. I love that. It's a great way to end. Well, Mike, Madeline, thank you. Thank you for being here on campus for us again for our residency. Thanks for taking time to sit down with Gilbert and I. And we're just so excited to have you part of the team.
Yes. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.